Welcome to this week's edition of Under the Golden Dome. We're 1 week away from the second funnel deadline, which is a big deal because it tells you a lot about what priorities the two chambers want to keep alive. As a reminder, the second funnel deadline requires a bill to have passed a committee, one chamber and a committee in another chamber, unless they are appropriations and Ways and Means bills. So we'll be looking to see what happens with all of the education bills that the House has sent to the Senate. I think it's fair to say the Senate has sent very few education bills over to the House. Sometimes we kind of appreciate the less is more approach that they're taking. So there are 5 things that I want to cover with you today, but first I just want to talk a little bit about the environment. Things are getting a little testy up there, as they always do, as they march a little bit closer to that ending deadline. And, despite the fact that we have a trifecta, all 3 major branches of government controlled by Republicans, they don't always think the same. And we're seeing that manifest itself in a number of issues. So let me talk about the 5 things. So the first is the AEAs. What's happening with the AEAs? Well, in an astonishing turn of events, the Senate was scheduled to debate their AEA proposal, which more closely mirrors the governor, and we are opposed to, primarily because it moves special education to fee-for-service, which we don't think is sustainable long-term for all districts. They had a long caucus on it on Tuesday, and ultimately it was pulled from the Senate debate calendar. I can count on my one hand the number of times a bill has been brought up and put on the debate calendar and not actually debated. So this tells you that there is some strong opposition within the Senate Republican caucus to the direction that the governor and the Senate Education Committee has proposed. What it probably means is that we're going to be at an impasse because the House will not pass anything closely resembling the governor's proposal, which the Senate proposal does. The Senate seems unwilling to take up the House proposal, and the governor has indicated through an email to superintendents that she has yet another new proposal on the AEAs. If I had to guess, at the end of the day, we probably end up with nothing, but we're still early in the process. The second thing I want to talk about is Where's Waldo? So if you remember the children's book, Where's Waldo? Well, I feel like Where's Waldo is Where's SSA? Like, we're looking in all these pictures, we're looking in all these bills, and we don't see any kind of resolution coming forward on SSA. The House, as you well know, has passed a 3% SSA. The Senate has taken the approach of, until a lot of these bigger issues, and by bigger issues, I mean the income tax cut, what kind of reform and savings will we see from a AEA bill and the teacher compensation package, they're uncomfortable putting forth a number. Now, frankly, they've always had big issues facing them every session, but I think it's going to be unlikely that we'll see anything coming out of the Senate until after the March 15th revenue estimating conference, where they get updated numbers about what the state of Iowa's economy is. On the good news front, the House today passed their version of teacher compensation increases, which is a bill that we are in support of, and frankly is probably the most sustainable and fair approach. In addition to the increases and the investment in teacher salaries, they also did 2 other things that are really important for us. Number one, the House voted on an amendment to reduce the waiting period for teachers that retire, so that they don't have to wait 4 months to get back into the classroom. We know that that's an important part of helping alleviate some of the teacher shortage problems that we have. And the second thing that they did is they changed the budget transparency law to say that school districts just have to complete that transparency process that was adopted last year within 30 days of SSA being enacted. Now, this is probably not going to change what you're already dealing with as board members in terms of meeting the requirements of the current law, but I think it's a really good step forward to say, look, we're dependent upon you setting our SSA rate. We can't set our budgets until you do that, so give us some flexibility on the transparency side. Finally, I want to bring up an oldie but a goodie that has resurfaced, as things often do in this legislature, and that is Senate File 251. Senate File 251 passed the Senate last year, and what it does is it says that your administrative expenses can't exceed 5% of your general fund budget. Frankly, almost every district out there is already meeting that. What they did that makes it more problematic is they expanded the definition of what meets an administrative expense to the point where I think roughly half the districts would find it very difficult to comply and would actually lose money. That bill has resurfaced. And I know that Michelle has written up the advocacy and action piece for the week to talk to your House members about this. So I encourage you to read that in board briefs and reach out to them, as we do have a subcommittee scheduled for next Tuesday. The last thing I want to leave you with is that we're in a place now where both chambers are trying to position themselves with their priority issues and trying to leverage, I guess is the best word I could use, how they're going to get those accomplished. I don't see any real discussion going on between the two chambers about some of the big picture issues, which makes it kind of an interesting process as we see how they will resolve that. But I do know that each side is sort of staking out their territory with respect to the bills that are really important to them. And so will be interesting to watch that process as we move forward. As a reminder, we'll have more information after next week as to what survived the funnel deadline. But as I always say, nothing is dead until they sine die. With that, have a great week, and we look forward to hearing your advocacy on Senate File 251.